Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And uh, in continuation of our programs related to Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, and we are celebrating International Day of the World's Indigenous People on 9th August every year. And this year also we are celebrating International Day of the World Indigenous People. And this year's theme is the role of indigenous women in the prevention and transmission, in preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. This is the role of theme of this year, 2022. And basically, actually, the one uh, lady from Karnataka, she got Padma Shri Award. She was indigenous for preserving and transmission of indigenous knowledge. Who worked with Mrs. Gowda, one lady. She was given Padma Shri Award from Karnataka. She was working in forest department and she has vast, tremendous knowledge of traditional knowledge. She was preserving all. She was the called encyclopedia of the forest. She knows all. She can identify all the plant species, and she was working in forest department since our childhood. She was working in the forest, and she has some Gowda, one lady. I think last year she received Padma Shri Award from President of India. Yeah. Uh, for this traditional knowledge, preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge only. But she retired from forest department, but her services were recognized, and she was rewarded with Padma Shri Award. And regarding this International Day of World's Indigenous People, I think because the indigenous people they cannot be separated from our forests. Our forests and tribals are integral part of our forests, and various uh, the laws, acts, rules, declarations, all recognize their rights, and they are adequately protected. And once again, for a change, we are discussing on the uh, importance of this day, World's Indigenous Peoples Day. And next, this basically you may be having some idea of indigenous people. There are around 370 million indigenous people across the world in almost 70 countries all over the world. The indigenous people they have practicing units traditions, and they retain social, cultural, economic, political character. They are distinct characteristics, distinct from other dominant civilized societies. They preserve. They are hereditarily they are transmitting and they are uh, preserving and transmitting their traditions. They are the indigenous people, and they are the descendants, but there is no exact definition of indigenous people because they are associated with a particular geographical area. They are the native people, and they are the uh, inhabited before other colonial people or other people, other uh, migrant people. They have dominant people, they are civilized people, um, encroached or conquered their lands. Like that, many areas, almost all continents, these indigenous people are there. In India, Australia, America, Latin American countries, Africa, Europe, Northern America, especially. Uh, but United Nations also recognized their rights. Next, almost in most of the islands, also they are inhabiting most of the indigenous tribes. And understanding the indigenous people, they are the uh, there is no official definition so far for indigenous people, but instead of defining but recognizing them is important. Indigenous people they called with different names in different areas: tribes, indigenous people, native people, uh, pre-colonial people, prehistoric people. But they have distinct features. Self identification: indigenous people can be identified at their individual level, and that can be accepted by their community members. If some community accept that somebody is their member, they are the indigenous people, and we can't claim that we are the indigenous people. Some tribe has to accept you as their indigenous people, otherwise you can't claim as indigenous uh, person. Some tribe has to, and they have some historical continuity, and all of a sudden you will not become an indigenous person. Indigenous people, they are historical connectivity, and they are associated with pre-colonial or pre-settler societies, or they are called indigenous people, and they have strong link to territories with surrounding natural resources. They are strong link to particular place. If they are shifted to other place, they will not be called as indigenous people. They are associated with their land for centuries, thousands of years. They are associated with their land and resources, and they are closely associated with those resources and those forests and those geographical territories. They are called indigenous people. And there's some people who have migrated to from other places, they can't be called as indigenous people. They should be associated with some particular island, particular forest area, particular hilly area, first particular valley area. Such people are called indigenous people, and they are good with their associated with their natural features like forests, rivers, mountains, valleys, or beaches, or coasts, islands. They are associated with their geographical territory, and they are the managing those resources since um, many generations, thousands of generations. They are managing and are closely associated, and so that they have distinct social, cultural, economic, and political characteristics that determine the indigenous status of their community. And they have distinct language. Every tribal group have their own language, and their own language, and that will not resemble any other tribal group of the world, anywhere in the world. Each tribal group have a distinct language, distinct culture, distinct religious beliefs also. Each tribal group, even small uh, group also, they will have their own language. Like in Arunachal I worked, where more than 60 tribes are there in Arunachal Pradesh. Whole population is 15 lakhs only. In some group, there less than 1000 people are there in a one tribal group. They have their own language. No other language resembles their language, because they are isolated, geographically isolated, and they are closely associated with particular region, particular forest area, or particular hilly area, particular valley area. And they have their own religious beliefs also. Their traditions are also distinct. Their culture is also distinct, and they will not mix with any other community. That is the that will determine the indigenous status. They marry within their community only, and their language is distinct, and their culture is distinct, their religious beliefs are distinct, their traditions are distinct, their style of dress is also distinct, and their cultivation methods or practices, hunting practices are distinct. That distinguishes their indigenous status. And from they are basically different from civilized. They are basically non-dominant group. They, because they are isolated, they are not much advanced. They are not civilized, not much civilized, because they have less exposure to outer world. They are less exposure to other civilized societies. They are less mixed with other societies. That's why they are less dominant. And uh, and these are the basic features of indigenous group. And because there is no definition, and we have to identify with these features, we can identify a group or community as indigenous or not. Next, question of identity. And UN also, United Nations, they try to identify uh, their indigenous people, because they have recognized their um, UN also recognized their indigenous people's rights. And many other countries, they have recognized their indigenous people's rights also, because their territory has to be protected. They are basically native people, tribes, aborigines, ethnic groups, Adivasis, Janajatis, occupational communities, uh, and hunter-gatherer communities, some nomads, some peasants, some ill people, they call. All these terms are used for these indigenous communities. Uh, these, these are the some of the features of indigenous people. Next, and they have their distinct culture and knowledge. Their traditional knowledge is immense because they are good at natural resource management. Their language is unique. Their knowledge systems, especially these traditional knowledge systems, are um, since generations they are carrying forward. Especially the knowledge about their forests, health systems, traditional health practices. They have their own health practice systems, and they have vast knowledge about this plant resources, natural resources, and they are good at sustainable management because wherever tribal indigenous communities are there, the forests are managed sustainably and the resources are managed sustainably. There is no adverse impact on the environment wherever traditional communities are living, and they have. We can't tell them their culture is inferior or superior because their values, vision, and their needs have to be recognized and protected. And political party participation, uh, they are not participating in modern civilized societies, but they have their own traditional political systems, their traditional administrative system, their village head, their community head. He will administer. Their legal systems are also good. Their community legal system, their dispute resolution system is also they have evolved traditionally, and their administrative system is also well. Their administration is well. Their land order maintenance is also good in their society, in their community, and they are bound by rules and regulations in indigenous people also. They, even though they no codified legal provisions or acts or rules are there, but their traditional rules and regulations and uh, administrative system is traditional. Next, and the United Nations also declared, made as a declaration to protect the rights of indigenous peoples in 2007, and and we are doing this, celebrating this International Day of Indigenous People every year on in August, 9th August. We are celebrating, and UN also, there are some articles they have made to basically to recognize their territories. There basically 46 some articles they have made in the UN declaration. It is not a treaty or convention or and covenant or protocol, but no country has ratified or no country has signed, made any this agreement. This is not a agreement. Basically, this is an declaration, universal declaration by the United Nations, and all the countries wherever tribal indigenous communities are there, they have to oblige this declaration. Basically this national laws also made based on this UN declaration. National laws in India also, this various tribal constitutional provisions are there, protection of indigenous tribes and others, and the protection of aboriginal tribes in Andamans also. Their act is there, 1956 Act, protection of rights of aboriginal tribes of Andamans, 1956 Act is there. We have various constitutional provisions in India also for protection of the rights of indigenous people and tribes, and UN declaration based of the next United Nations General Assembly, consisting of all the nations, they have made this declaration, and many countries they have worked for many years, and they have studied in all the indigenous communities all over the world, and they have made this declaration basically to protect the recognize the rights of the indigenous people. Next. 24 preambles provisions are there in the UN Declaration of Indigenous Peoples' Rights. Around 46 articles are there, and to basically for protect these their um, prescribed minimum standards for survival, dignity, well-being of indigenous peoples throughout the world, including their rights related to governance, health, community, culture, language, lands, territories, and resources and education. Basically, and next, this. Uh, Regarding this declaration, there are some general principles. 5 articles are there on equality, non-discrimination of individual and collective rights. There are 5 articles, and on self-determination, self-government, and recognition of treaties, there are 3 articles are there. And implementation and redressal of these declaration, 6 articles on taking appropriate measures for conflict resolution, financial and technical assistance. There are 6 articles are there in UN declaration. Then next, regarding lands, territories, and resources, there are 7 articles on ownership, protection from relocation, military use, adjudication of rights, redress of non-consensual taking of lands. There are 7 articles because tribals are displaced. Indigenous tribals are frequently displaced. Wherever any new project to development project comes, indigenous tribals are displaced all over the world, not only in India, wherever, because the tribals are associated with forest areas and hilly areas and river valleys, such wherever such areas these tribals are inhabiting, and whenever there any hydroelectric project or any other development mining projects, this all these mines are existing in forest areas where tribals also exist, and mining is also essential for development. Hydroelectric projects are also essential for development, and whenever hydroelectric project comes, whenever any mining project comes, many any other development project comes, these tribals are displaced and they will be relocated. They if they are not relocated, and they most of their livelihoods are affected, their existence itself is affected, their culture is lost, their traditions are lost, and their community they lose their existence. They will lose their status, indigenous status. They cannot survive in civilized society. Earlier they are the hunting gathering communities, and where they were living in forest areas, they cannot survive. Suppose in Bangladesh, from Chakma refugees have come in 70s. They have constructed a dam in Bangladesh. The Chakmas, they are Mongoloid tribal people, and they have not relocation, rehabilitation was not made for these Chakma refugees in Bangladesh when they constructed dam. And all the Chakma refugees, they came to Assam, Tripura, and Arunachal Pradesh and settled in India. Indian government at that time, they have shown some areas and they have resettled. Bangladesh, they have not resettled. Otherwise, their position will become vulnerable. And they have simply constructed dam, and their areas were submerged in forest areas. And all the Chakmas came to Arunachal Pradesh. Still, they are there. They some areas still they are uh, in for reserve forest areas also they were settled. But forest department to be claim that it is a reserve forest, but they claim that it is allotted to them there, because the Indian government at that time they have shown that land and they have occupied, and they are cultivating and they are staying there, but still their rights are not recognized. They are not given tribal status to in Arunachal Pradesh because they are the migrants, and local tribes will not agree that the local tribe people, even Arunachal also there was a dispute. This Kiran Rijiju and Pema Khandu was chief minister and Kiran Rijiju is the central minister, and because they were given settled, but they were given voter ID cards also. They are the voters, but there is a dispute. Local people they say that they should be evicted, but that will where they will go? Is Bangladesh government they will not take them back. Indian government they are unable to settle them. They cannot to settle them. The Chakmas they have become refugees, and there is a dispute whether to remove them from as per this Indian laws also. No other people can settle in tribal agency areas. That is there as per Indian laws. But they will not come under this tribal status because that is not their native land. If they are associated with their native land, then only they will become indigenous people. The indigenous people in Arunachal Pradesh are local tribals, but not Chakmas. Chakmas, they are refugees, they are outsiders. They will not be given indigenous status there. But indigenous status, wherever indigenous people are there, no others outsiders should come and settle there, even they, irrespective of their citizenship. Even Indian citizens, we can't say. Even I also took this inner line permit for entering Arunachal Pradesh. Everybody has to take inner line permit. No, nobody is supposed to enter into agency areas. Nobody can buy land and settle in tribal agency areas. Only tribals only can, they only can stay in their land. So that is for made for their protecting their rights, indigenous status, for protecting them from exploitation, for protecting them from displacement. These laws are made. And there should not be military use. Military use should be used. Military action should not be taken. Military, in some areas military activities are taking place, but Arunachal military activities will has to be taken place because it is a border area. It is bordering to China and Myanmar. Military posts are there, but it should not be interfered with local tribal cultures or local tribal rights should not be affected. Their hunting rights should not be affected. Their livelihood sources should not be affected. Their culture should not be deprived or affected. And military use also with their consent only. Their even for taking military, establishing military posts, or for roads or any transmission lines, even diversion of forest land. Also, this local community, tribal community, they have to give consent. This uh, public hearing is made in for any diversion of any forest land or any. In that, this tribal community people's rights have to be uh, for regarding adjudication of rights, this tribal rights, settlement rights, and even for taking lands or with their consent also, certain provisions are made. And all these tribal areas are associated with forest areas, and all forest areas should be conserved, and no diversion should be made. Wherever indigenous people are there, they are declared as reserves, tribal reserves. In some areas, they are called agency areas also. And these forests have to be conserved, and there should not be any diversion of forest lands. Even for mining areas also, with their consent only, there with proper relocation and rehabilitation, then only with limited scale only it can be taken up, this mining areas. And no outsiders cannot be uh, engaged. In Andamans also, there are wherever Jaravas are there, those areas are declared as Jarava reserves. No outsider is permitted to enter into Jarava reserve or any even
Any
other.
forest official? Don't know.
For Jarava reserve will not to go for any forestry activity. We will just preserve it for wildlife and forest protection. In their areas, we will not to harvest timber or non-timber forest produce.
Any these forest peoples are allowed to enter.
Yeah, we can enter with permission. Government servants also we can enter, and but we are not supposed to stay in Jarava Reservoir.
Okay.
And even while I was working in DFO Middle Andaman Division, Jarava Reserve was under my jurisdiction.
Okay.
In Jarava Reserve, we were not taking up any activities like harvesting, timber harvesting, plantation, or any other any development activities we are not taking up. But only we used to preserve, we will protect wildlife. And any poachers, they venture into there, we apprehend them, they book cases against them. Anti-poaching activities we take up in Jarava Reserve, but we will not take up any other forestry activities. Jarava Reserve is preserved, and this tribal welfare department also, they also establish some posts, and we also protect wildlife and forest to preserve it there. And but they will come outside also nowadays.
Okay.
Jarawa. And I was in DFO Nicobar division also. I was posted Great Nicobar Island, where Shompens are staying in Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. And Yeah, these people are not. They call it them as reserves. Go back. And regarding cultural religious rights also, they have to be affected. They have, because they have distinct culture and heritage, and they have distinct history, and they have distinct spiritual beliefs. And there, for protecting them, there are 6 articles are there in UN declaration. Their heritage has to be protected. Their heritage should not be forced to come. Civilization should not be done. Because of that, many civilizations have lost, because of they want to civilize them. uh, that will not work. And their history and their culture, their language has to be preserved, and their spiritual traditions they have protected there. And they, and for promoting education, and the tribal communities, they have right to their promote their own media, and the education, and has to be promoted, but in their own language, and which should not be against their own traditions. Next. And in India also, there are many provisions were made for protecting the tribals and their rights. And there was a Qatar committee was also formed for, and they have given uh, some of these the tribal people should be developed along on their own lines, as per their own wishes, and nothing should be imposed on them. And their arts culture should be encouraged. They have rich vast culture, art, their their handicrafts, their arts, their paintings. They're unique. Each tribal group have their own arts, tribal musical instruments, their the distinct musical instruments, their musical songs. Their each tribal group have their own dance forms. Every tribal groups, that those two should be protected, and their culture has to be protected. Their tribal culture has to be protected, and their tribal rights in their land they should be respected, because they don't have any land title, even though, but they are indigenous to them. Their rights in forests have to be protected, and they should be administered on their own. Because of that only, this still wherever tribals are there, the tribal administration, the tribal chief is recognized as village head. In Arunachal, where I worked, the village head is called Gaon Bura. He is the head. No panchayat raj system in tribal areas. The tribal head is the village head. He will get some salary also from officially government side, and he will administer the law and order. He will administer the uh, uh, village administration. And any dispute is there, the decision of the village head is the final. He is the judicial authority also for that community. Any dispute among their community, the village head is the generally it is a traditional village head. It is recognized by government also, local government, and the village head delivers the uh, justice to the disputed people, and no other outsiders cannot intervene. And police intervention is very less. Any outsider comes, then only police intervention comes. As far as their land order also, their tribal communities, they maintain their own land order, and the tribal should not be over administered. Only limited administration for promoting their education, health, providing their basic minimum facilities like roads, drinking water, sanitation. In tribal areas, I think these only the ration, these minimum work, and promoting their non-timber products, promoting their handicrafts, articles, where government is administration is required. Otherwise, they in their internal matters, the government will not interfere. Only for promoting their trade. Outside traders are not allowed. Wherever tribal agencies are there, tribal cooperatives, Girijan cooperatives, they establish government, because they should be protected from exploitation from outside vendors, traders. That's why Girijan cooperatives are promoted, and this even forest areas also, wherever they are there, forest should auction to them only, their forest communities. We have to form village community or for village forest community or village self-help group or such thing. And these tribal communities, they should participate in collection, harvesting, processing of forest produce, and that should be sold to Girijan cooperatives, where minimum prices should be fixed, and without minimum prices, they should not be purchased. It should not, outside the traders are not supposed to purchase directly, and the government agency will procure from them, and they will give minimum prices to their produce, their handicrafts, their the NTFP products where they have collected, or their medicines with them they have developed, or the liquor they have produced. They should be procured through Girijan cooperative. Ani they have collected, or lac they collect, or amla they collect, and tendo leaf they have collect. They have auctioned and sold through these Girijan cooperative societies or their tribal communities. They manage these natural resources. And next, and regarding this tribals, there are many viewpoints are there. Policy of isolation. Some people say that the tribals should be isolated and they should not be civilized and they should be left like that. Whatever they want, they can live in their own traditional way, and they should not be. And their areas should be reserved, and their areas should be declared as tribal reserves, and no outside government or no outside interference should be there. It is a total isolation policy, but in some areas it is working. In wherever aboriginal tribes are there, this isolation policy is being followed still now. Where in Jarawas, in South and Middle Andaman, and in Wonges tribes are there in Little Andaman Island. Their areas are declared as reserves: Jarawa Reserve, Wonge Reserve, and where Shompen tribes are there, they are not civilized. Shompen tribes also in Great Nicobar Islands, their area is declared as, because this change will not come suddenly, because they are aboriginal tribes. They are almost 10,000 years backward. Still they can't jump from 10,000 years. It is any transition will come slowly, step by step it will come. If you want to change overnight, they will not cope up with that. And that's why wherever such aboriginal tribes are there, the policy of complete isolation is followed, where the reserves are declared. And next, policy of assimilation. Policy of assimilation means you are bringing them to mainstream. That means the tribals will be given proper education, proper, and they will be taught civilized culture, and they will be brought into mainstream civilization. And and they will lose their tribal way of lifestyle, and they will, and adapt to the new civilized culture. And their dress style will change, their language will change, their culture will change, their traditions will change, all their religion will change in this assimilation process. In some areas, this that's what happened, where especially I will name, wherever Christian missionaries, some areas they have ventured, and they have converted into Christianity, and and they live like a just modern civilized European person the style lifestyle they have adopted, and assimilation. But still, some people they have both they're in a dilemma whether to follow that culture or this culture. Sometimes there is a mix of two, and sometimes there is, and there is a confusion state, that it is in this policy of assimilation. They can't be assimilated overnight. No, the thousands of years of their cultural traditions they can't change
Questions
within a
regarding
single generation. They can't change, and there will a huge cultural shock will be there. That, and their parents and grandparents are living in a one lifestyle, and children they are simply overnight they are adopting one culture. There is a vast cultural gap will be there, and there will be this policy of assimilation always may not work. It should be slowly assimilated, but many thinkers they suppose that their culture tradition, no culture is superior, other no culture is inferior, every culture is superior, because all human beings are same. All human beings, traditions, cultures, language, traditions, everything is superior. Everybody, for our culture is superior for us, but their culture is superior for them. Their language is superior for them, but our language is superior for them. Even we should not. That is the UN declaration says that all languages, all cultures are superior. No culture, no language is inferior. That is that's what UN declaration says. That's the policy of assimilation is contrary to that. No, why? Because you are telling that you have to leave your culture and you have to adopt our culture. This policy of assimilation they may not work, but if they are willing to adopt a new um, way of lifestyle, it is left to them only. Because if they want to live in their old traditional lifestyle, they can also live in their old traditional lifestyle. But this is up to them, they have to decide, and no force should be imposed on them. This is a policy of assimilation. Next, and policy of integration. Policy of integration is in a mediocre way. Even you should be not supposed to change their culture, but they can retain their culture and they can integrate into main culture. Both the culture, they can retain their culture and they will be integrated into their um, main mainstream culture of the main culture of the country or nation or state. The tribals need not lose their culture but still integrated into other culture. They can retain both the cultures, they can adapt to both the lifestyles. This is the policy of integration. Next, this is also favored by Jawaharlal Nehru. There are many constitutional safeguards are there. Article 14 uh, shall not deny any person equality before the law or equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Equality before the law and equal protection of laws. All are before, all are equal before the law, but equal protection of all are equal before the law means everybody cannot access the law equally, that's why equal protection of the law is also concept is there. Equal protection means somebody is weak, they should be protected legally. That's what this means. Equality before the law means somebody is weak, they cannot how can they claim the law. That means equal protection of the laws, that says that those who are weak they have to be protected as per law. That's what article 14 says. Then article 15, yeah, there should not be any discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. That means even though tribals are also equally, they should not be discriminated. That's what this no discrimination should be made. The article 15, they will be protected, their rights also, tribals rights also will be protected. And next, and apart from that, there are, I think, as all of you know, they have some reservations in services and posts under article 335 of the Indian constitution. Under article 330 of the constitution, they have reservation seats in parliament and assemblies and other local bodies as per article 330. Article 332, reservation in state legislative assemblies, parliament. 330, these are the constitutional provisions for reservations in services, posts, educational institutions, and um, parliament and assemblies. And the tribal area subplan also made special assistance for giving tribal areas. Tribal area subplan will be there wherever tribal agencies are there in tribal states, tribal area subplan will be there. From fifth 5-year plan onwards, this is being implemented. For special budget allocation will be made under tribal subplan. Under tribal subplan, for certain activities, budget is given to state governments. Even forest departments also get for implementing this tribal subplan in all states. While I was working in Andamans, I was implementing tribal subplan. While I was in working in Arunachal Pradesh also, I was implementing this tribal subplan. Some budget allocation will be made. That budget allocation, budget allotted under tribal subplan has to be spent in tribal areas only, not in other areas. And for this activities mentioned for those purposes only, that budget will be spent for improving the livelihood status of the tribals. This tribal subplan is, this is a central government, central sponsored scheme, central assistance plan for especially for rising production of production in agriculture fields of tribals, and establishing small industries for promoting horticulture, animal husbandry, elimination of exploitation of tribals in from money lenders and bondage, usage of forests and liquor vending, development of education and training programs, development of tribal areas, upgrading environment of tribal areas. This tribal sub plan budget has to be expended. And 20-point program also, this is also implemented. And vocational training programs in tribal areas, and these are the some other development programs of central government. Next, and educational facilities, as you are know, they are, I think they are, they have good opportunities now. This the residential schools also being established by state governments and central governments, and others ashram schools are being established for them. And next, medical facilities in tribal areas are also being improved. And next, and this from 90 to 1952 forest policy also favors these tribals and indigenous communities. And for some certain concessions are given for tribals, uh, for promoting their agriculture. They can uh, they can cultivate, they can practice shifting cultivation. It is allowed, they cannot be denied. In northeast also, in other states also, wherever tribal agencies are there, they are practicing shifting cultivation. That is legally allowed. And grazing is allowed, and for them. And some minor forest produce also, they can collect stones and other. And some certain extent they are doing mining also in tribal areas. The only tribals can do it. And others, they can collect ntfp also, bamboo, honey, and other canes, timbers. So, and fishing and hunting is allowed. In tribal reserves, only tribal, only that community only can hunt. In tribal reserves, tribal areas, wildlife protection act will not be applicable to them. They are free to hunt in the tribal reserves,
Any
but
species?
outsiders cannot hunt.
Any species, sir?
Any species they can hunt. Whatever they want to eat, they can say hunt. Jarawas, and then nothing will
Even
be.
they are red listed species also.
Yeah, rare endangered species also they can hunt. Jarawas, wonges, in where in Nicobar division I was DFO. We used to protect this turtle nesting site at Galatia River Bay. Turtles, great leatherback, very big leatherback turtles used to come and nest there. We used to protect them. We used to collect these eggs, and we would put it in hatcheries. And when the hatchlings comes, we used to release in sea. This leatherback turtles, great. Even from Australia, the turtles comes to Galatia River Bay in Great Nicobar Island.
Okay.
We had a big sanctuary before tsunami, and there we had big sanctuary there for great leatherback turtles in India. That was the largest nesting site in
Okay.
Campbell Bay in Great Nicobar Island. They used to manage it. But some local Nicobari tribes and sometimes Shompen tribes, they used to come and they used to pick up and take
Okay.
turtle, and they used to for their own eating. They are not commercially they can't sell, and they can come, take and they can eat. That we will not object. Yeah, that is allowed in their tribal reserve areas. Hunting is allowed from them, and shifting cultivation they are allowed to practice in tribal areas. Collection of minor forest produce they can collect. These are the some of the and apart from that, Forest Rights Act is also made, and 5 hectare land is given to many indigenous people, forest dwelling people who are staying in for 75 years or 3 generations. They are staying, and this tribal welfare department, forest department, and revenue department jointly implementing this.
Okay.
Many states, they have been given this land is given to them under Forest Rights Act. This is
They are
based on UN declaration.
they are initially they are claiming that. Then
Yeah, they are
after
staying, but their because it is not a revenue land, no title is given to them. They are traditionally living since generations before this revenue departments government existence. Before government existence, they were living there, managing themselves. And all of a sudden, during British period, many of them they have lost, because this Santal tribes before 1857 revolt itself, the Santals revolted against where Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Bengal, Uh,
Birsa Munda is there.
Birsa Munda, their greatest leader,
Yeah.
I think he used to have some more than 1 crore followers in
Yes.
this Santal belt.
Yes.
Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh,
Odisha too.
Bihar, Bengal, Orissa, all this tribal belt he has commanded. And these Santal tribes, they revolted before 1857 revolt itself. And because of their this traditional rights were taken away by the Britishers invaded for timber, and they have imposed their rules. Their even they have not allowed hunting, this cultivation, or they used to collect taxes from them. Even Maharajas of India, they never collected taxes, and that's why they were very aggrieved and they were very ferocious. They will not tolerate their so if somebody interferes in their religion, customs, culture, or they have revolted, but the Britishers brutally suppressed their revolt. Santal rebellion, they have suppressed. They used to tie Santal tribes to this cannons, no? Cannons. They used to tie to cannons and they used to blast them.
Yeah.
Like that, they have suppressed the Santal rebellion. And the Forest Rights Act, important act, this recognized the rights of indigenous people of forest dwellers. And I think this is being implemented in all states, but in Arunachal it is not being implemented because they are the owners, no? There is no revenue land system is there. Entire state is theirs only. Even
Tribal
if
only.
5 hectares is not sufficient, everybody is having 100 hectares there. Why they will take 5 hectares in Arunachal Pradesh? Each tribal individual is owning more than 100 hectares of land there.
It is
The,
on paper, sir.
in Arunachal Pradesh.
It is on paper or
No, they own, they command. Even
yeah.
forest departments only manage, and the community has to they share. Even if some timber is harvested, the community they will get to 50%, or community forest
Share.
department that it will go to them only. Even forest department manages, but for them only. They have rights. They can very well cultivate in shifting cultivation to cultivation, and they can do hunting in limited extent. But hunting nowadays they have become civilized, not to resorting much to hunting. But we are the forest department also conducts awareness camps. Earlier they were getting air guns licenses. Now they are surrendering because they got licenses for they got air gun licenses for hunting,
Okay.
but now they are surrendering. We are conducting campaigns for surrendering air guns because the wildlife is extinct. They are become extinct. That's why they are to be protected, because now everybody is civilized. Now they are not nomadic, or not that much primitive to hunt, to depend on only on hunting and collecting food gathering.
They have so many other
Now they
opportunities.
have become rich and they are entering into services. They are well to do it. And only primitive tribes wherever they are, only that is the only livelihood source that has to be. Under Forest Rights Act, right to hold and live, community rights are also recognized. Right of ownership, access to collect, use, and dispose of minor forest produce, and rights of the conversion and leases, right of settlement, right of protect, regenerate, and conserve and manage forest resources, right to access biodiversity. All these are rights recognized under Forest Rights Act 2006. And many states they are giving land. In some states, still under the process.
But it is actually implemented on I think 31st December 2007. I think.
Yeah, 2007 onwards being implemented. And okay, now Forest Rights Act, so everybody knows. Next, and these are all provisions of Forest Rights Act only. Next, Forest Rights Act. And next, these are the some of the Forest Conservation Act also in tribal areas for establishing schools, dispensaries, hospitals, anganwadis, electric telecommunication cables, and roads, community centers. This Forest Conservation Act, they are relaxing. Wherever tribal indigenous people are staying, these can be established without permission. And next, yeah, because I worked in Andaman Nicobar Islands, I will tell about this. There are many primitive Aboriginal tribes because when this Britishers occupied these Andaman Nicobar Islands for timber. They used to harvest timber, and earlier they were not interfered. This Aboriginal, there are basically six Aboriginal tribe groups are there. They are Great Andamanis. They were present all over Andaman Nicobar Islands. And the Onge tribes, they were in Little Andaman Islands. Jarawa tribes in South and Middle Andaman Islands were there. And Sentinelese Islands, only Sentinel Island there. Sentinel tribes were staying there. These are the basically the Negrito group of tribes. They resembles Negroes. And there are other two groups of tribes. They are Nicobar Islands. They are in Nicobar Islands. These are in Andaman Islands, Negrito group. These Nicobari tribes are Mongolite tribes. There are two groups of tribes. The one Shompens and Nicobaris. Shompens are Aboriginal tribes still, but Nicobaris are civilized. During British time, they were civilized by Christian missionaries. The Nicobaris tribe, but Shompen tribes in Great Nicobar Islands, they are still Aboriginal tribes only. But these Negro tribes, how they have come, many people have many theories. But earlier when man evolved, he has migrated from Africa to Europe, Africa to Europe to India, India to Southeast Asia, Southeast Asia to Australia, like that to migration routes. And India to uh, again this Latin America and North America, they have migrated these tribes, and they have retained because long isolation, because they have retained their primitive futures. That must be the reason. Some say that somebody have migrated again recently, they have migrated and settled there, like that they say. But I think in when man was during the course of evolution, they must have come there Andaman Nicobar Islands and they have settled there. And basically these Jarawa tribes, they hunters and gatherers, they hunt the wild pig is there, monitor lizard is there, fish is abundant, and this forest based fruits, honey, and some other roots, tubers, berries, fruits they collect and eat. But still that nomadic style of lifestyle they are adopting. And next, these are the Great Andamanis. Only 30 or 40 people are now they are there. The Great Andamanis, they used to be thousands of people used to stay before Britishers went there. But when Britishers went there, they were tribals were very ferocious. They fought and lost their lives. Many of them lost their lives. They tried to civilize them, and but they were not willing to get civilized. They could not adjust with them, Britishers. This Great Andamanis people. Great Andamanis people, because they are disease resistant also weak. Even when earlier outsiders went there, many diseases they have contracted because they were not having resistance even for common cold also, like corona, COVID, recent COVID-19, that viral disease. We were not having immunity. Now we have developed immunity, but when initially we have that virus came, we were not having any resistance power. Like that, they were not having resistance for even for common cold also. And many masses they have died, like that when outsiders went there. The Greater Andaman is used to be in thousands of numbers, but they have fought ferociously with Britishers. They have resisted, but still suppressed and killed. Many were killed, and now only 35 or 40 people are staying. This is a unique tribe group. They have distinct language. Their language is separate, and now they have all of them. These 35 or 40 people are resettled in one Stark Island. That was also come under my Middle Andaman division jurisdiction. I used to visit there um, only. They have civilized, but they have picked up Hindi, but they are become extinct. Only 30 or 40 people are staying. Uh, they are Great Andamanis people, but they were the this is the case of uh, forced civilization, that forced change, that they can't adapt to, because if we want to force or apply to change them, or to that the tribal group will be become extinct. Then they will not survive. If we, that is the reason they were allowed to live in their own lifestyle. We can't uh, transition will have to come gradually. Transition cannot be made over a one generation, or it, from many generations. It should be slowly they should be civilized. uh, They wanted to make them civilized, but their whole entire their race has become uh, uh, extinct, wiped out. And next, next the case of Jara, Onges. Onges live in Little Andaman Island. Little Andaman Island is the southernmost Andaman Islands, southernmost island of Andaman group of islands. The Onge tribes, they are also not many, around 100 or 100 people, odd people are living in. There is one creek called Dugang Creek in Little Andaman Island. They live. They are also basically fishing and other um, hunting, food gathering. They are living. They have their own distinct language and their culture, traditions are like they are making dugout dinghies. They take huge log and they dug out, and that they use for rafting in sea and go for fishing and other activities in the sea. That is the dugout dongi they call. They go for rafting in sea. That is a primitive boat. They their indigenous knowledge. That is the boat making technology they have developed. They use it for rafting inside the sea. Even they are going to venture into open sea also with that dongi.
Okay.
Yeah, that will not tilt. They will not. That will balance.
Okay.
Even in big waves also that will balance. That will not uh, dugout dinghy. Their technique is good. Their traditional knowledge of boat making. The Onge tribes, there are not many. In only Little Andaman they are having. Their presence is there in Little Andaman Island. Onge tribes, and next they are also not civilized. They were forced to. And Jarawas are there in Middle Andaman and South Andaman Islands. They wherever they are living, that area is declared as Jarawa Reserve. They are also fishing. Even they will shoot fish, swimming fish in this sea river. They shoot with their arrows. Such a sharp. They can identify a fish inside the sea also. Their vision is very sharp. They can, and they are very keen. But we think that we are intelligent, but their forestry knowledge is very vast. They can, and they make such type of arts and live, and they will not stay in a one place. They migrate frequently to avoid diseases. We don't know. They hunt pigs. They collect honey and they collect fish. They go for fishing in the sea or creek or river, and they burn and they go to new place wherever water is there. They go and settle. And this Jarawa reserve we are not supposed to enter, but many tribal welfare department they are taking many activities for promotion. But now they will not be interfered in their own way of life. The amount of they are also not many. Around 200 people they may be there left to this Jarawas also.
Okay.
They used to be in many numbers in earlier, but their population is stable since many years. I think that is carrying capacity. The limit to carrying capacity we don't know. Their population never explodes. Even recently they are giving started giving food to medicines and other things. They don't wear clothes. This all these aboriginal tribes, the Great Andamans they wear, but Onges, Jarawas they don't. Now also they don't wear clothes.
Okay.
Yeah, they and because the amount of money the government of India is spending, if it is given to each Jarawa, they can happily live in five-star hotel for entire life.
Okay.
The number is less, but the amount of money they are spending is very huge. It is like that. Government policy is like that. Uh, every Jarawa can live in a five-star hotel for their entire life if that entire money is given to them directly. Instead of that, the tribal welfare department for taking up various activities, they are spending that money. These are the Jarawas. Next to Sentinels, another group. This is the only tribal group in the world. They are isolated completely. No contacts with any outside world. Their world is different. Only that one island is there in southern part of island. If you go to Port Blair via Chennai to Port Blair via flight, we will pass through that to Sentinel Island, and we can. It is a rectangular island, squarish island. Only, but nobody knows what they do. But their lifestyle is also similar to this Jarawas and Wonges only, hunting, fishing, and food gathering, and their number maybe around 200, maybe that much only, because that island may not support the more than that small island only. But that is protected because why Britishers they never enter, why they did not enter there means because there was now proper harbor was not there. That is they can't anchor their boats or ships. That's why they may not have gone there. Only small island they have left to them. That's why. And after now, this Indian government has found completely banned. Nobody is permitted to go to Sentinel Island. That's why the Sentinels are protected, but still, um, nowhere in the world, no other tribal group is isolated like that. They
So we are
from
not any. The government is not giving any
nothing,
support.
nothing,
No
nothing.
medicine, no
Nobody goes
food.
there, nothing there. Even if somebody goes there, they will be killed by shooted by their arrows, sharp arrows.
So okay.
They will pump their arrows, and even some boat or sometimes some fishermen goes and they will immediately they will shoot with their arrows, and the fishermen come out. Sometimes recently there was some foreigner was getting dropped in the beach, and he was immediately killed by them there with their arrows. They will not allow outsiders to enter. Earlier Jaravas were also ferocious, but now they have become friendly. They have picked up Hindi, the new generation. And because any other tribal group also say same thing. uh, Next, that is the Sentinel Island from above, from aerial view, rectangle line. There is coral reefs around, and there is it is not, there is no harbor. So no creek or no harbor is there. The anchoring is not possible. That's why ships may not go there, or that's why people have left that island. But still, next, the Sentinels, and that is okay. Next, that is this, from out, from far away they have taken their photograph was taken. Yeah. Sometimes once during census time, some revenue authorities they went in a big ship from far away, but after seeing their arrows they have come without counting them. They have come, but it is not possible. But and it is estimated only that some around 200 maybe there. Okay, next, next. Next, the Sentinels, and these are the Shompen tribes. They are staying in Great Nicobar Islands. Shompen, there is a Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. Great Nicobar Island is the southernmost point in India. There is Indira Point is also there. Now it is submerged. Indira Point, there is a lighthouse is there. Now it is during tsunami it was submerged, and that is the Galathea River. Galathea River is flowing through Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. Galathea River Bay, there was a turtle nesting sanctuary is there. I was telling you that leatherback turtle nesting sanctuary, biggest turtle nesting sanctuary in the world. Many number of large leatherback turtles they come for nesting in Galathea River mouth bay. That is the Galathea River. That is a perennial river inside the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve in Nicobar, Great Nicobar Island. And the Shompen tribes are the Aboriginal tribes, and Nicobari tribes also there. Nicobari tribes they stay along the coast to some areas, but these people they stay in along the coast as well as some interior forest areas also. They are the Shompen tribes. They are also Aboriginal tribes, but they are not ferocious. They are very shy people. And the Shompen tribes generally they gather food like that, hunting and food gathering, fishing, and they live. And they eat this pandanus also, pandanus fruits that boy is carrying, no? The pandanus fruits. Pandanus is a seashore plant that some fruits comes, and that is a, they can break the shell, and they inside some starch kernel will be there.
Okay,
They
okay.
grind that starch kernel and they make some cake like things and they eat it. I also once eat that pandanus cake. One I went to one of my Nicobari forest guards house. Then he offered that pandanus cake to me. It was tasty, and though they survive on that because they sometimes they come to Campbell Bay town for collecting some rice, but they are very shy tribes. They live in such type of houses, makeshift houses, that small huts. They live with their family, one family, one hut, such one somewhere, one or two, somewhere one or two for 10 kilometers distance. They stay in very dense forest. That is a evergreen tropical, very dense forest, inaccessible forest. But if some outsider goes there near to them, before we reach there, they will burn the hut and they will vanish into the jungle. They are very shy tribe people. They will not attack the Shompen tribes. They are, that is the Galathea River. I used to go in my fiber boat in that Galathea River while I was working in Nicobar Islands, Great Nicobar Island. These about Shompen tribes. They are
ये
also
रात
not
में सर
many.
जब अंधेरा हो जाता होगा तो ये लोग तो टोटली
Yeah, in dark only, completely aboriginal tribes. They are not.
So
They
normally,
they know fire, but I think uh, they rarely eat. I think they collect only some tubers whenever they get something, some animal. I think they eat once in a while only. Not their habit
one
is like
day
that.
once a day.
But they still look very strong and healthy.
Hmm.
Uh, Hardly they may eat 2 3 days, once in a 2 3 days they eat. I think. Some that too some pandanus fruits or some tuber or some honey or some fish or some animal they eat. But Nicobar tribes are they are civilized during Nicobar. They live in Car Nicobar Island, Little Nicobar Island, Kachal Island, Kamota Island, Nan Kauri Island. These Nicobar tribes, they are also Mongoloid group of tribe. Their face resembles these Indonesians, Mongoloids, and these are civilized and their number also increased. Around now 40,000 people are living in Nicobar Islands. These Nicobar tribes, but they have adopted for change, cultural change. They are they have converted into Christianity. But the all tribal groups they have their own religious traditions. Generally, these all Aboriginal tribal groups they worship sun, moon, such things, natural gods or superstitious gods like that. But these people, Nicobar tribes, they have adopted Christianity. When Christian missionaries went to Nicobar, Great Car Nicobar Island, and Car Nicobar is a very plain island. Many coconut trees are there, but still they grow some piggery, and that is their typical Nicobari art. And Nicobaris, they have civilized. Now they are entering into services, all services.
Uh,
Nicobaris. This is the only group they are civilized in the entire Andaman Nicobar Islands. All other groups, they are not aborigines only still. And but they have survived in cultural change. But in the name of cultural change, this civilization, making them civilized. Many tribal groups are not only in India, Andaman Nicobar Islands. Many groups they have vanished. Their culture is lost. In Arunachal itself, there are 60 tribes are there, and 15 lakh population, 60 tribes, 20 major tribal groups are there, 60 groups, 60 languages are there. But the only these connecting languages Hindi only. All of them speak Hindi. That is the good thing. They have learned. Their counterparts are there in Myanmar side and in Tibet side also.
they're
There,
fighting out.
no, they will not fight. They are a peaceful people. They will not interfere with each other. They will never future. But Nagaland side, some tribal groups, they have become entered into some NSCN activities. But
Oh,
NSCN activities they are. But wherever these tribal agencies are there, they are autonomous. As per UN declaration, autonomous councils are there. Only the councils can rule. No external government will rule. Autonomous council in Assam, autonomous tribal councils are there. The tribal councils they will be given budget. They have parallel government like state government. Autonomous councils they will spend their budget and they will hardly the revenue collection is less in Arunachal also. Only government of India only sending money and you know regarding Arunachal, this is the case of Australian Aborigines, but some of them have survived. Australia also there was Aboriginal tribes were there used to be. They also around from Asia they migrated to uh, this Australia, Papua New Guinea, Tasmania, New Zealand, other islands are there, no? Pacific Ocean islands. They went there. They were living, but before um, these Europeans went there. There were many in numbers in Australian Aboriginal tribes. I think from former cricketer, this Andrew Simons, he was also Aboriginal tribe. But
okay.
sometimes they wanted to try it. They have made civilized some these Australian Aborigines. They used to survive by hunting, food gathering, and Australia also soils are not fertile. No, not good forest cover is there. Only eucalyptus plant, eucalyptus trees and some grasslands. Entire most of the areas are grasslands only. They used to collect grass seeds and eat, and sometimes fish, and sometimes they catch snakes and eat. Like that, the Aborigines used to survive. They were in some thousands of numbers. But when these Europeans went there, especially Britishers went there, they occupied all their areas and they tried to civilize it. But their race has not become extinct because they were not ferocious. They were somewhat friendly. They were not killed. They have assimilated. and they were also the outsiders. They were not much harsh. In some time, they were during this after uh, colonization. Some generations they used to collect this steal their children, and they used to put in boarding schools, and they were educated some students. That's what called they are called stolen generation in Australia. Stolen generation. They used to because they want to civilize them, the Aboriginal tribes. They want to. Otherwise, they used to be in their nomadic life only. Nomads. They were living like nomads only, uncivilized only. But their culturally were they were very their art, culture, painting. They were good. The Australian Aborigines were also, and there many mining areas are there, coal mines are there in Australia, and many grazing lands are there that for cattle ranches. They were the colonials. They used to they pushed them aside, and um, for animal husbandry they were using their grasslands. But the food habits also will not change suddenly. No, they used to eat certain type of foods, but when the colonials they went there and they given their food, their digestive system may not adapt suddenly like that. This some of the Aboriginal tribes. They next we can show that they are the Aboriginal tribes of Australia. And next, they used to store even Australia also. Some of the areas water scarcity will be there. And, desert is there basically. They have their own technology storing water and others. They were adapted to the Australian harsh climate. The Aborigines. They were basically hunters and nomads only. Next, the kangaroos are the main animals. They used to kill and eat kangaroos. The Aborigines before um, the Britishers and Europeans settled there. Next, some of their this prehistoric time they were their implements were also made of rock art. They're famous for axes and grinding stones. They are their implements. Next, this is some of the art form of these Aboriginal tribes. Next, this is I think they are somewhat resembling the Asians, Aborigines of Australia. Next, they have their own many each tribal group have their own language. Next, almost similar wherever Aborigines are there, their cultures, traditions, somewhat similar only. The methods of bows, arrows, spears, they are the main hunting, gathering, and their dance forms, art forms. They are next. Next, their religion is called dream time religion because they believe that during dreaming, they spirits they come and they have created the land, people, and animals. That is their religion belief. We also get dreams, no? Dreams. Their religion is a dream time religion. That is, they believe that while dreaming, the spirits will come and they will give everything. That is their religious belief of Aboriginal tribes of Australia. Uh, yeah. Next, some of the dance forms of Australian Aborigines. They are even they are good dancers, and Jaravas also in Andamans during full moon day. They all of them dance in the beach. Mm. But outsiders they can't join them. Sometimes if anybody joins, they will be booked. Yeah. But sometimes they can't stay. And next, next, good. Next, next. These are some of the Aboriginal tribes. Yeah, next. Their art forms are also very good. Yeah. Good. Their paintings, their handicrafts. These Aboriginal tribes, they are the rock paintings especially still existing there. and they paint on barks also. Then next, that is the kangaroo made with shells collected from beach. And next, these are the rock paintings of the Aborigines. Next, these are collected from next. Okay, next skip. These are the musical instruments of Aboriginal tribes. Next, they are the dancing forms of Aborigines. And when Europeans came, they were resisting, but there was a war between them for their land. But they were ultimately grabbed and settled there. All the colonials, wherever they went there, especially the European settlers. Next, but because of their this, colonialism and settlers, the, the lot of diseases they have contracted. There are a lot of, and many Australian Aborigines they have died because of the diseases, because they are lacking decision. In Tasmanian Island, entire Aboriginal population became extinct in Tasmania. That Tasmania is also an island adjacent to Australia. Tasmania Island, entire Aboriginal tribal population. There are many islands, New Zealand, other islands, Papua New Guinea. Many islands are there adjacent to that in Pacific Ocean, in adjacent to Australia. Still, there are then some many tribal Aboriginal tribal groups are there in New Zealand, other island. They are called islanders. Uh, they are Aboriginal tribes, but invaded by Europeans. But now they have becoming civilized. Next, next. These are the they have made civilized these people, the student, by stealing them and putting them in boarding schools, and they were taught English education, and they have next. But now they are entering into politics and these Aboriginal tribes also. They have representation in parliament and other services. They are entering into services and other professions, other trade and commerce, and they are becoming teachers, lawyers, and other politicians. These Aboriginal tribes in Australia also. They are now almost they have civilized. In Australia, it is okay, but next in coming to North America, I think there was a they are called Red Indians. They were very much badly affected. That is, if you see the history of North America, they were because the Europeans went there after discovery of America by Columbus. Britishers, Europeans, all European nations, they went there and they have settled there. They have pushed them. There used to be many tribal groups in North America. They are called Red Indians because their faces somewhat resembles Indians' faces. They have thought to that they instead of coming, they wanted to come to Columbus, wanted to come to India. They went to America. I think first they have discovered America,
He
and he
wanted to
thought
take
that
India.
the Americans were
Right.
Indians, and they have named them as Red Indians because their faces were also resembling Indians only, and they have called them Red Indians. But there are many groups, Red Indian groups. They were uh, cultivating agriculture, and they are practicing many cultural practices. They were large scale. They were pushed and killed, and their areas were occupied, and they were confined to certain areas only. These Red Indians, very tragedy, and now they are less than 1%, 0.5% or 1%, maybe Red Indians maybe less. All 90% are only European settlers only. Other some 10% to African settlers, and some Indians and others, other Asians or Chinese and other Asians. Their number has become less because actually the Americans are these native Red Indian tribes. They are Aboriginal tribes. They were killed in large. At that by that time Europeans went there. They were not civilized, and uh, they were killed in large scale. They were pushed to unfertile areas, fertile areas where this maize and wheat grows. They were Europeans occupied, and they have settled there. They have made settlements, and lot of ports were there because North America is a big continent. No, the Europeans went there. Even Canada and Alaska and uh, USA, many ports. They were the trading ports to North America and Europe between. But this tragedy, there now they are considered as, but they also resisted. But they were not having modern guns, and They could not defend their territories. This North Red Indian people of North America, they were lost and they were killed in large scale. Whoever has resisted, they were killed, and whoever have survived, they were pushed to some interior unfertile and rocky and uh, areas where their livelihood also affected. They can't survive, because the indigenous people, they are very closely associated with their territory and their land and their, because they can manage their areas properly. Only they have learned techniques to survive in those conditions only. If they go to new areas, they can't survive. Next, these are the many. There were 566 federal American Indian and Alaskan Native tribe in United States. Each of their own culture, language, and history. Every tribe has unique traditions and distinct lifestyles. 566 tribes used to be in North America. Next, and these are the some of the. Without your language or your land, you are not who you say you are. That's what they say, and land is the basic criteria for deciding the um, existence of a particular indigenous community. They are almost resembling the Indians only, yeah, the Red Indians. Next, this is some of the art form of that Red Indian tribes. Such type of art forms they make. Next, this bison is the cheap source. They used to be the buffalo. This North America used to be the source of food for them, and they used to kill and eat it, especially during winters. They will not get to less food, no? And they used to survive on this. Next, porcupine also they used to kill, and they used to make some artifacts with the quills of that porcupine. Next, and some of the Red Indian tribes were good at this agriculture, trade, and commerce and systems. And some of the Britishers promoted their culture also sometimes. Red Indian tribes, because they were good at some of the arts and some of the agriculture and maintaining their territories. And the Europeans, they promoted them. Some tribes, some tribal groups in America. Next, and this is the symbol. Even now also US shield, this bald eagle will be there. US shield, this is taken from the tribals, they worship this eagle. The Iroquois is the group of tribal groups, and they worship this, the totemite. They fall, they are the group of these people, they who worship this, the religious belief, this world. And this US government, they have taken this bald eagles in their shield. Next, there was a confederacy of some tribal groups. They are the confederacy. Next, even this Eskimos now also they live in this uh, in Canada and Alaska area. Eskimos, they snow only they live in their traditional snow huts. Snow. Next, and in USA also there are tribal reserves there. They are confined to tribal reserves only. Red Indian tribes, they are declared as tribal reserves some of the areas. Next, next. And where the Red Indians used to live, now they have become very America. How they would have prospered and developed on their territories. Very big cities have come up where these Red Indians used to live in their especially these port areas and other cities where earlier used to be Red Indian habitations. Now they have become Detroit, Kansas, Pittsburgh, Chicago, all these major cities. They have come in on their territories and their habitation. They were pushed and they have Next, and this during World War One also some of the uh, uh, Red Indians they have participated because they are somewhat civilized, but still they considered as not much mingle with these civilized societies. They confined to themselves only. Next, that's why their population is dwindling, not promoted. Even their languages are unique, and their languages are used sometimes used as code languages because nobody can decipher their language. Some of the tribal groups' languages. Next, this kind of huts they used to live, mound huts, because that is a cold country. No? During winter there will be heavy snowfall. This kind of huts only they can survive. If snow falls also inside the mud, inside the earth, they make this kind of houses. Even it will they can survive under severe snowfall, and it will maintain temperature also. Earthen houses inside the earth during heavy snowfall, and in summer also if the temperature also goes very high in summer into minus 40 to plus 40, no? In summer also this kind of it will maintain temperature if it is within the earth, under the soil, that can protect from the severe colds and severe heats during winters and summers. That is called organ shelter of some of the tribal groups. Next. This is the basic about next, and the basic about this. What I want to tell is there is a tragedy of these Red Indian tribes because of that colonialism and external invasions. They can't survive. This indigenous people they have to be protected, and they can't. During course of civilization, the tribal groups have become many tribal groups have become extinct, and now they are protected because of their culture has to be protected, and you even also made declaration their rights have been recognized in all the nations, all the civilized worlds. The indigenous tribal groups rights are being recognized, and we are celebrating this indigenous people's uh, day also on 9th August. I think I will not take much time. I will conclude this. Okay, thank you.